Hello, and welcome to another episode of Stu and the Nunn, an online radio show and podcast focused on national security, policy, politics, and self-service. We're here to give you an honest opinion, different perspective, and hopefully a few laughs. We do this by not only interviewing guests, but also sharing our own perspectives and asking you, the listener, to interact with us on our chat room, via our Facebook page, and of course, on Twitter. Keep it funky. That's right, everyone. Keep it funky on this December 6th. Thank you for welcoming us into your homes tonight, into your ears and on your screens. This is Stu here from Stu and the Nunn, joined by my good brother from another motherland, the Nunn. What's up, Toby? How you doing, buddy?
Pretty good. I think you were trying to give me like the subtle signal to get started there, but
what signal was that?
I don't know.
Oh no, I was
spirit fingers.
No, I was going along with the intro, talking about the Twitter and the Periscope, and I was like, I was miming to the camera or something. I don't know what I was doing, but I was
delightful.
like, the Twitter, the tweet, I could do like tweet.
Oh,
I could do that. Maybe, I don't know.
Oh man, that's like Twitter gang signs right there. Someone's gonna get outraged.
West Side, yeah,
outraged. But hey, no, it's good to be here, man. It feels like it's been a while. We've had a couple of holidays sprinkled in there and some different things going on, but it is good to be back. I'm freshly back from the great state of South Dakota. I believe you're fresh back from hanging out with all the beautiful people in Las Vegas.
Lovely Las Vegas, as our friend Matt sings about. Yes,
I think I probably got the better deal, but
I don't know. You probably did. Actually, you probably did.
Maybe.
You know why? Because I wasn't with you. If you were with me in Las Vegas, we were with Matt, it would be the place to be. Yes,
good time.
It was work. I was at a conference.
Like the good old days.
Yes, those were some good old days. But G6. But yeah, it was. Yeah, it was cold out there, dude. 40s out there. It was like, I'm going to Vegas. I'm from the Northtown studio.
No one cares what the temperature in Vegas is.
That's true. Yeah, you're right, because those girls out in front of Bellagio, you're getting your picture with, they were still barely dressed.
Nobody cares what the temperature in Vegas is.
Yep.
But hey, no, it's great to be here. We're always excited. Big shout out to Enlisted 9 Fight Company, as always, standing tall, standing beside us. Rocking the Jolly Rancher there. I am not. I'm rocking some flannel today.
You're rocking some flannel.
But that's because I'm about to.
Is it 511 flannel or no?
It is tactically sound flannel.
There we go.
But I'm excited that we got some new stuff coming in on the new Enlisted 9 Fight Company from their new partnership with Nine Line Apparel. So hopefully we'll be rocking some of that here shortly. And as always, big shout out to all the people that make the magic behind the magic. People like Fire and Ice Pizza Bar, of course, Mesquite Creek Outfitters,
Right
who
there. I'm representing.
got the growler going tonight.
Yep.
Always excited to see that.
I had to break the hat out because I missed having it last week, so we were talking about him.
No, like you gotta be representing the Mesquite Creek Outfitters. But no, like it's good to be back. It's good to be supported by great people, surrounded by great people. This past 3-4 weeks, while it's been a whirlwind and crazy, it has been one of those wonderful reminders of how blessed our lives are and how special our circle of friends are and how much they mean to us. And not for anything other than just appreciating the fellowship and the friendship that we have. We are lucky men. We are lucky men indeed. And like whatever it is that initiates that realization in your life, like cherish it. I know some people right now are reflecting on the passing of a great leader, a great man, George Hubert Walker Bush, as he came to his final resting place here in the great state of Texas. One of the things that's so neat, I had so many of my friends and people I know through social media that went to watch Locomotive 4141.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And like standing on the side of the railway
in the rain
for a train. Yeah, no, like in not great weather right now, to watch a train go by at 30 miles an hour, Yeah. And there's some wonderful footage of it, through Facebook Live videos, through pictures and posts on Instagram and Instagram videos. And one of the things, he's under guard, some of the Presidential Guard, the 3rd Infantry Regiment, as well as the 8th and I guys are standing watch over top. Over them. And, I was thinking like, man, like that's got to suck trying to stand at parade rest and attention in a rail car as it's moving.
Yeah.
Like,
and they were there because there were some pictures today from White House photographers. I saw one from inside and there was a sailor at the end and yeah, the train is flying by. You can see the blur of people outside the window they had. And that dude's rocking at attention. Yeah. They had to stay nimble on their feet. That is for sure.
Yeah, no, like I was never a DNC guy, and so when I see those guys and what they do, I'm always impressed, and and
yeah, it was quite. I think
now better
he's
them than me.
Yeah, I think it was with the passing of John McCain, there was a lot of pomp and circumstance on there. President Trump honored the family's wishes and they honored him almost like he was a president. And but today we in the last several days from shutting down the whole government, which someone that works a lot with government agencies, I can tell you was a big impact yesterday. There's work schedules and this and that, but shutting it down for the most part. And the ceremony in DC, the people they were saying at 3 a.m. Tuesday night, Wednesday morning, there was still a line outside the Capitol building at 3 a.m. for people just to walk by. They weren't going to see any family members. It was going to be pretty much, just them.
No.
But just think about it. People are willing to stay up all night, be out in the cold in D.C., make that sacrifice just to get a few minutes to walk by and pay your respects. It just goes to show you how much he was loved and respected as a leader of this country. And a one-term president, but a very impactful one-term president, both during his presidency and well after. No,
it's so interesting. I was a little kid and studying history, and there's all these pictures of the Soviet Union of people lined up in, I guess it's Gorky Park, the red square there, to stand in line to see the remains of Lenin. Right. And I remember as a child thinking like, this is stupid. Why are people doing that? And these people are probably doing it out of obligation, and they might be forced.
Right.
And they're fearful that if they were seen not doing it, what repercussions they could face. And and it was just always this thing that stuck in the back of my mind. And as and we've seen it in the past couple of years with the passing of Reagan, with the passing of other big leaders, most recently John McCain, Barbara Bush. As we see the passing of these great Americans, I more and more realize that people are doing this because they are trying to continue that connection or to close the loop on that connection. I watched a wonderful documentary a couple years ago called 41 on 41, and it's not a very long documentary, and it's 41 different people giving testimony about President the United States President number 41, Hubert Walker Bush, and it's really neat. And one of the guys that they focus a lot on was Dana Carvey. And they focused on Dana Carvey because during his presidency,
Yep.
They just like now, like not much has changed, except they were funnier back then.
Yeah, it was real satire. It wasn't. It was
actually
attack.
satire.
Yeah, it wasn't.
No, like
attack.
Dana Carvey, was like, not gonna die, 1,000 points of light.
Yeah.
He was really funny. He had a good impersonation. It was.
And President Bush befriended him. They became friends.
Yeah, no, and yes. Like in the documentary, it talks about how President Bush invited him and his wife and had them guests. They stayed in the Lincoln bedroom in the White House for a weekend, so that he could get to know him better. And he found humor in, like being made fun of.
Mm-hmm.
But, his whole presidency was his election campaign was based on no new taxes. And then he had to walk that back.
Right. The read my lips. That's what got him was the.
Yeah. Read my lips. Not gonna die. In that documentary, they show the footage, they do the interviews, and they reveal something that I didn't know, but he got physically ill because he broke his word. He became so disheartened that he broke his word, that he did not keep his word, that he got physically ill, and he tanked his campaign for re-election.
Yeah.
Because he like felt unworthy to serve because he had let people down. He had broken his word. And, what a character trait. Like when you look at, and it doesn't matter what side of the aisle, what side of the fence, whatever party you want to, or lack of party you want to cling to, show me somebody that has fallen short in something that didn't hire a PR firm to like
do damage control and all that
do
stuff.
Damage control, who stood up there, owned it so much that it made them sick to their stomach, and they felt like they let down the American people.
Well, just like the letter now, the letter we know about, the note he wrote President Clinton, which, once he beat him after one term, and he said, you won and congratulations, and he says, you are my president, you are our president, right? He embraced him as, hey, you beat me.
Yeah.
You're our president. I hope you do well, and good luck, and all that kind of stuff, and not the what we've seen in this last change of power, but this where people even today, well over 2 years after, still are saying not their president. But this was the guy he beat and said, "You're my president. Hope you do well." And then, as we know, both President Bush Sr. 41 and President Clinton have became very good friends after the fact. Collaborated on a lot of efforts, from Haiti relief to all kind of natural disaster relief to raising funds. So things that when the big tidal wave and earthquake, I think, happened over Indonesia. I mean,
Yep.
they collaborated on a lot. It kind of reminds me. I remember when I would see that. It reminds me of, you probably had this happen, Toby, in high school or middle school or elementary. You get in a fight with a dude and you end up becoming your best friend, right? You get in a fight with a guy in the schoolyard, and you guys duke it out and give each other a black eye or whatever. Both of you get, punishment from the principal. Back in my day, we'd actually get paddled, and you go home, get your punishment there, and then you build this level of respect. Maybe he was bullying you or vice versa or whatever. or someone spread rumors, and then you become really. I became close friends with everyone that I ever got in a fight with in school, and it kind of reminded me of that. It's like these guys battled it out on the really the world stage, and became very close friends because of the mutual respect that they gave it all they had, and he was humble and had humility, and just took, and it just so what an example he still sets today, right? Of all these
Well,
stories that come out.
yeah, no, like one of the things that like really, everybody, I've heard everybody that's been referencing him or speaking about him in the past couple days, week, really talk about his presidency. And, while I do think of that, I try to remind people that before he was the president, he was a vice president.
For 8 years.
Before he was a vice president, he held the job that I think is the most fascinating in terms of his personality. When you look at all the things that have been said about him, one thing that is undeniable, he was an amazing man of character, an amazing family man, and believe that the most important thing that you could do is be a good man, be a good father, be a good husband. And you look at how he didn't just say those things, he did those things. He was the director of the Central Intelligence Agency. And maybe it's Hollywood, maybe it's our understanding of personality types and, the extended aspect of how now we have babies that were born after 9/11 having babies, that there's a generational gap, from the war on terror to before that.
Right.
He ran the CIA.
Right.
Like, how did he do that as a man of moral character? Like, he did, and that's the thing that, like, nowadays that he'd be chastised, they'd be calling him, all these things. But like, how cool is that people like don't even realize
they forgot that. I mean, it got drowned out by president, which got drowned out his vice presidency. Right?
Yeah, and he was a fairly successful vice president.
And even before all that, he was very successful in the private industry and business, and while growing up, as a young man and growing a family before he ever got into public service and civil service. I mean, he was
sprinkle in another elected office before all of that as well. But all that aside, the next thing that is pretty cool is, Bob Dole.
Yeah,
Bob Dole and him went like head to head on a lot of things, but push comes to shove, they went back to where it all began for them, where their service began for each of them.
Right.
And that's how they measured each other.
Yep.
And that video of, Mr. Dole being helped up so that he can render, the best salute that he can muster at this point in time was, man, super touching.
He's not a spring chicken. I mean,
no, like I got to be honest with you, like I got a little emotional watching that, and I'm not a Bob Dole fan,
right?
But like I saw that, and
because the level of respect, right? It was just seeing someone.
Yeah.
He could have wheeled up, he could have saluted him sitting, he could have done anything, and it would have been just fine, right? It would have been just as respectful. Like, look at that, he came out there to do that. But to take that extra step, right? No pun intended.
He gave everything he had at that moment to demonstrate that guy gave everything that he had during his life.
Yeah, yeah.
And like, it's such a subtle little thing, but it is so profound and impactful. And I got like emotional seeing that video. And of course, we're seeing all these, eulogies,
which are all so powerful in impacting.
Like Brian Mulroney's, the former Prime Minister of Canada,
right?
Like talking about, like how George Hubert Walker Bush mentored him in like international diplomacy
Right.
by, like making jokes about like the smaller the country, the longer the speeches. You know?
Oh, and there's so, I mean, I don't know if you watch today's. I watched today's, and his grandson, the eldest grandson, the eulogy he gave in Texas,
Yeah, that's
right?
strong.
Talking about crawling up and competition and talking about playing horseshoes and this and that, and even the Oak Ridge boys bussing on him and everything like that. I mean, you
Yeah.
just there is no doubt there's so much more than just the political side of it, but even the political side. And John Kaiser kind of brings it up in the chat. That he accomplished all that he did in 4 years with the House and the Senate controlled by the Democrats, right? And
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
and and I think that goes twofold. I want to kind of mention this to John too. One, I think they weren't so beholden to one party line. I think back then there wasn't so much bias to it's one way or no way. It was they had to get around, to get along. They had to compromise and that kind of stuff. And not everything he got through worked, and the whole raising of the taxes, so on and so forth. But yeah, he did it all. There was no mandate. There was no he battled the whole way in 4 years. Without a doubt. I mean, what he pulled together in the coalition Desert Storm, and he was the president that sent me to my first war, and what he pulled together, and where truly had a international coalition. I mean, I remember the Syrian army tanks rolling through our Alpha and our battle positions as they got in position next to us. I mean, you had Pan Arab forces, you had countries from all over the world. He was able to negotiate between him and his Secretary of Defense and his Secretary of State to bring them all together as joint chiefs and get all those countries to fight one common enemy, regardless of what their financial gains were from that enemy, from Saddam Hussein or anything else. I mean, he accomplished, an ultimate statesman to bring some of that together. To spend 4 years, get a lot done. I mean, the American Disabilities Act, probably one of his hallmark pieces of legislation that he pushed through, right? A lot of people probably back then didn't even know that he had lost a daughter to leukemia at 3 years old.
Oh yeah.
Right. And how, how fitting, if you would, I wouldn't say ironic, but how fitting that, he himself who passed the legislation that did more for the disabled in America, and himself ended up in a wheelchair at the end. Thankfully, he had done that. But I mean, again, probably one of his most important pieces of work he ever did, but definitely not the one that was always thought of. It was one that's probably kind of overlooked, but has had a long-term, profound impact on this country.
And let's just unpack that for a second. So we're talking late 80s. When he's pushing that through. He had seen the consequences of war. He'd seen the consequences of World War II. He saw the consequences of Korea, saw the consequences of Vietnam. And, like, how long did he think and work on and wait for the opportunity to make that happen?
Right.
Like, to put it together, and was like, of all things, like, we have the joke in the infantry about, you go to building 4 and, as you're getting ready to retire, you're at building 4, you're trying to create what your legacy is going to be. And, you're going to do that one thing that everyone in the infantry will always remember or hate you for, and that'll be your legacy. Like he went to the White House and he changed how the landscape will forever be traversed, figuratively and literally.
Yeah.
Like how cool is that? Like, that's, of all things, like, that's your benchmark. And think back to other presidents, like, what's Clinton, what can he say? Like, don't ask, don't tell.
Monica Lewinsky.
Like, what can he,
what's Carter got? Gave away the Panama Canal.
Like, all cool stuff, but like, is that in comparison to the ADA?
Right.
Like, that's one of the greatest pieces of legislation that's ever happened in America, period.
Right. Yeah.
Like, if one thing that you're going to be known for, and hardly anyone's ever mentioned it, and all the things that are going on, like you made it possible for that anybody with some form of a physical challenge is treated and has the same
Access.
opportunities
Yeah.
and access that you have.
Yeah.
If you don't have that,
Right.
like if ever, like that's a true piece of equality.
Because we know without a doubt, right? If we could turn back time and not have that in place, we know without a doubt many businesses, many places today would not have those things that they've spent money on building to make sure that there are ramps and there are, other, because how many things are like, well, you got to have this for, 88, to be 88 compliant, that kind of stuff. It's because of that legislation, all tied back to him. And I think most people kind of forgot about it or just never really put two and two together. But yeah, it was, it's been, it's awesome. It was not a nice thing too. There wasn't, there was no politic or grandstanding. I mean, the president, so no doubt that the president has had, on the outs with the Bushes. I mean, of course, President Trump didn't even go to Barbara Bush's funeral. But all that was put aside. I saw Jeb Bush even said that he couldn't have been, the president couldn't have been more gracious and kind. So I was glad to see, because we both know sometimes the president will say or tweet something and we just kind of face palm and go, even I do too, and it's like, why are you picking that fight, right? Why are you going there?
Yeah.
But he's been very reserved. And he's been very kind, and he's outreach. Of course, he makes the final call on a lot of those funeral arrangements. He has to approve the use of Air Force One. There's nothing guaranteed for a past president to get that or anything, and it just went out of his way to do that, which is awesome. So, it's been good to see that. It's kind of been a little bit of a coming together of our country, I think, a little bit. Hopefully, it's all been true. The media, I mean, there's been some people saying, I've seen some stories that some people saying, certain left-leaning media they're just faking it to get through it and this and that, whatever. I don't know, but at least they showed the respect. I think all the major news networks have been covering it. There's been a lot of coverage with it from all the way to D.C. and then back. And now today, he's now, I think, finally resting. I think he has been buried now. That they kept that ceremony private. But, everything I saw, it really reminded me, not that I was alive then, but it reminded me more of like JFK's funeral than I think even President Reagan's, because it seemed to have a little bit more of the pomp and circumstance and justifiably so that would be warranted for a president. It seemed to have a little bit more of that, the ceremony, the military guards, the all that stuff. I mean, today the 21 F-18 flyover, for goodness sake,
that was strong.
Yeah. And
that was strong.
But again, he was more than just a president. He was a warfighter. He had been shot down. He fought for this country. He should have died out there in the Pacific Ocean. So it was more than just, hey, he served our country as a president. He was a warfighter. He was a CIA director. He was a vice president for 8 years. And then he was a president, and then still contributed and continued to give back to this country up until the end, which I think he got everything fitting of him. But yes, great. Be sorely missed. And I'm glad he's looked back on it.
But, I want to end this with none of that was what the impression he left on everyone that spoke.
No.
What was left, the impressions that were left, was that, it was important to be a good man, a good father, and a good husband.
Yeah.
And, the last words of his son, GW, being, he's hugging Robin, that they've kept that torch alive, that torch of love alive for a child they lost in 1955.
Yep.
And is going to hold his wife's hand again.
Yeah.
That
was a eulogy of all the eulogies right there.
If that's the message that was left, how fortunate you are to have that. My dad, might have said this. I know a lot of people have said, Dave Reaver says it, live your life so the preacher doesn't have to lie at your funeral.
Right.
And I don't think they did, No. I don't think they did.
No, but so we talked a little bit about World War II. I kind of want to transition a little bit into something else, if that's okay.
Yeah, no, let's it's heavy on the heart, so let's
Yeah.
do it.
So today's December 6th, people. It is a couple Thursdays left here in the month, and tomorrow is a very significant day in our country. One that we've said we will never forget. A day that will live in infamy. It is December 7th, and we are at 76 years, right? 6 years, 7 years, yeah, 7 years, 77 years. Right, no, yeah, 77 years from the attack on Pearl Harbor, and that is a significant day. So tomorrow will all the news and everything go back to Mueller and Mueller and all this kind of stuff? I don't know, but our good friend Lauren Bruner, who's been on this show, we hoped really to have on again. He is the one of what, five, Toby, surviving members now of the Arizona
Yeah, so there's only five
living.
surviving
Yes.
members, and that's Mr. Conter, Don Stratton,
Yep.
Ken Potts, Lonnie Cook, and Lauren Bruner.
Yeah.
And we've been blessed, to have Lauren on the show. And man, one of the coolest things I ever got in my life is when he sent us autographed pictures of the Arizona.
Yeah.
I know I shouldn't be laughing about that,
Dude, I'm looking
but
at mine
it's
right
like,
now. I put those up.
just like I've never been so honored, like to get something. And
The one he sent us was the last 10. So when there were 10 surviving members, I'm looking at all three prints that he gave us. It is the picture of the Arizona as it's sailing out of harbor, and it has the last 10. So now we're down to half of that. There's 5 of those that are left that are still on this earth.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's sad this year. I was reading the press release this morning that this is the first time that no survivor of the Arizona will be there for the moment of silence tomorrow. And it's the sign of the times. Like when we lose those that witnessed it, that part of history changes how it's remembered. And the Vikings say in their culture, you die twice. When you die on the battlefield, you go to Valhalla, and then you die in Valhalla when people don't remember your name. And I'm not a Viking, and I don't subscribe to Odinism, but
you have some Viking looking hair, though, I gotta say.
Right? Brr. Yeah, but what I do agree with is that when your name's no longer spoken, you are forgotten. When that moment in time is no longer mentioned, it is forgotten. I mean, there was probably 10,000 battles before and around 1066 when the Battle of Hastings happened. But that's the only one we know, and that's the only one we remember. And we think like that's the most important battle that happened in the defining of the Western world. It might not be, but that's the one that got documented. That's the one that we remember.
Right.
That's the, and, we have to remember these names. That's why I think, Lauren's project of doing this audible history, this oral history,
Yep.
so that when you go there, you hear his voice speaking the names of the survivors and those that had fell. I think it's crucial. This young man that's gone around the country recording World War II vets on YouTube. Like, I think that guy's a stud.
Yeah.
I think, and I think that's crucial because if we don't, we'll forget. And we'll forget that there was a country that had an imperial leader that devised a plan to sucker punch us and did successfully, brought the hammer down.
Right. Well, that's kind of one of the reasons why we, couple weeks ago, we had Paul Schillo on. And again, though you haven't listened to that episode, you need to go back and listen to that. It's like 3 episodes ago. It's where we had Paul on, right? He was a member of the first offensive battle after the attack on World War II. He's the last surviving member of the Battle of Bloody Ridge in Guadalcanal in the South Pacific in World War II. I mean, so you don't forget that name. So his name isn't forgotten. So people will remember, and hopefully that's, people will go back and listen to that. August. A little sneeze.
No, and we got to give a plug to the book. second to the last to leave the USS Arizona. If you have the opportunity
Let me
to
grab
get
that
that
right
book, you
Absolutely.
just get it. Just go to secondtothelasttoleave.org, correct?
Yeah, I think that's what it is. Yeah.
And get you a copy of it. All copies sold are autographed. All copies are signed by Lauren Bruner,
Himself.
who we've just identified as one of the only 5 remaining survivors of the USS Arizona. There was 300, and now we're down to 5.
Yeah.
So pick yourself up like this book again. Second to the last to leave the USS Arizona. Troy will show that book again before the end of the show. Get it. One, because it's signed by the author Lauren Bruner. He had 2 writers help put the story together.
We've ranted about how much have we haven't talked about in a while, but we have talked about this thing too. It is not like a book you've ever read. I can't push it enough.
It's crazy. It's 400 pages of mind-blowing prose.
Yeah, if you think of the biggest action movie you ever think of, which never ends, it just keeps going, and you think it's going to be end. There's more of the scene. That's this, but it's not a Hollywood production. It's real life, and it's involving about one day, and then a little bit afterward. But pretty much most of it's on one day, and not even the whole day. Most of it's that morning, right? And just so well documented. And we've been talking to Lauren's people, trying to hopefully get him back on. Obviously, he is getting way up there in age, and but tomorrow's the day. I mean, don't forget. Make sure you take time. I mean, hopefully people, put the flag up higher tomorrow, or where mine is at half staff as it has been for President Bush, and it will be at half staff until noon, and then I'll raise it, which I think is the right protocol for the December 7th, and then but hopefully wear something patriotic at work. And talk about it, and just because we get busy, right? People are texting, they're tweeting their work, they got conference calls, whatever, and they just kind of, before they know it, it's like, oh yeah, the other day was December 7th. That's what we don't want to have happen, right?
Yeah.
We just like we don't want to say, oh, was the other day September 11th? I totally forgot, missed didn't think nothing about it. That's we don't want that to happen either. So
no, it seems that in America, if you don't slap a holiday on it and give the day off to some, government workers, it's no longer an important moment in time.
Right. Absolutely. So it was, so that definitely is, tomorrow, and it's something to take notice of, and we will, honor it ourselves, and hope you do too. And we just didn't want to gloss that over and forget about it, even though it's not today, but we're close enough. I mean, this is right now, 77 years ago today, the Japanese planes were fueled.
They were in the air.
The kamikaze pilots had their last meals. They had wrote their last final letters, and they were wheels down. There was no turning back. They didn't have the fuel to come back. They went fully loaded, ready to go, and there was no plans of returning. So it was this time right now is as important as that. Our country was lulled to sleep and had no idea of the hell that was a bring to them, and what this was about to turn into for a number of years, about 4. So it's tomorrow, and then Toby, we talked about it. We have a couple episodes left, so still working on a couple guests to fit in this year, but I know we've got two episodes left, right? We got next week and the Thursday after, and that's, I think, we're wrapping it up for the rest of the year because of the Christmas.
But we will have episode 150, our 150th episode will be before the end of the year. As it stands right now, it'll be without you, so we might have to delay.
Is 150th next week? Is that 150th?
Yeah, so we might have to delay it. We might have to cancel next week so we can do the 150th episode together. I might have to take one for the team, take the week off so that we can.
I didn't even realize that's right. This is 149, huh? Oh, that's terrible. I mean,
Yeah,
it's
so
good,
that's
but
what we'll do. We might take next week off so that we can take one for the team.
and
You
have
know,
a
like
150th.
I will sacrifice
You'll sacrifice your Thursday night and actually have a Thursday night where you could be with your family.
just so that we can have the 150th episode together. No, like a couple other things. You know, we got going on this weekend, the Army Navy game, and I think that is such a neat thing.
Yeah.
Because here is something that brings our nation together over the most fickle thing, football, right? And it's like it doesn't matter what your politics are. It doesn't matter, you know, like if you never served, there's probably some connection. You're gonna pick a team. You're gonna pick a team. You're either gonna be on the Army side or you're gonna be on the Navy side. But yet you're on the
Should
same
be on the
team.
Army side.
Yeah, I mean, just saying the Army is probably going to win.
Yeah.
You know,
They definitely got the coolest looking uniforms.
yeah, Big Red won this year.
Yeah, remember last year's game? It was a white uniform and they were in the snow and they were totally camouflaged. You could not see them at all.
Well played, Army.
Yes,
Well played.
That was called understanding. There was understanding their situation awareness, and they did their proper ACOCA and understanding.
Yeah, I noticed how you said Akoka versus the original Oakok.
Yeah. I'm trying to keep it on the PG. But, this year, black uniforms, black helmet, tough. Now it's all about intimidation this year. Big Red 1 represent, and 1st Infantry Division.
But here's the coolest thing. It's like now with the younger generation, we're seeing these really cool moto videos, you know, and I'm enjoying that. I'm enjoying seeing like the inter-service rivalry. I think it's a healthy rivalry. I have, you know, dear friends that are Navy. You know, some of my favorite people in the world are Navy, and you know, like I don't think any less of someone that served in a different service, and I just think it's neat that this football game, has stood the test of time. And, you know, when you look at what football games they hoped would stand the test of time, we're talking about the Harvard-Yale games, right? We're talking about like back in the day that this was the biggest thing that was ever going to happen. And, you know, who gives a crap if Harvard and Yale play football? Like, do they even have teams?
Yeah, I was going to say, do they still have teams? I don't even know.
And who cares, right? Like, you made it to Harvard. Yeah, I hope you're not spending your time like playing football. I hope you're like hitting the books and then getting ready to, you know.
I know Notre Dame has a football team. Does Yale have a football team? I guess.
I assume they do because, you know, like that was like the great rivalry, like the Harvard-Yale rivalry.
Yeah. And,
you know, like that hasn't, you know, maybe it's still alive between like the whatever they call themselves, the Yaleys and the Harvard people.
Yeah.
You know, like I don't even know what they call themselves. But, you know, maybe that's still alive in their community. But Army Navy transcends that.
Right.
You know, like it gets CBS television prime time. It's, you know, it's held in Philadelphia. People make pilgrimages to it. You know, like it's not a bunch of West Pointers and Annapolis guys getting down and getting crazy. It's the entire country getting behind a football game. And the coolest thing about this game is it has zero significance on the sport.
Right. Yeah.
Like it is not about national championships. It's not about, you know, national, you know, implications. It's just about getting together, enjoying a rivalry, a healthy rivalry, and being American.
I wonder who the Air Force roots for when the Army Navy game comes on. I wonder the Air Force people. Do they pick one side or the other, or maybe who beat them the last time? They root for.
I don't. You know, like I think what they do is they just smile and say, like, "Well, we go to a real bowl every year." You know, like,
maybe they root for Army because they used to be
ranked.
Yeah, it could be. Maybe they root for Army since they came from the Army originally. Maybe that's who they go for since they were the Army Air Corps. But as Doug says, right? Texas A&M used to be a thing, but there's other ones, right? There's the Florida State's a big rivalry. Alabama Clemson, right? Is a big one.
All cool,
Yeah,
all cool, but that's regional.
that is regional. Yes.
That's regional,
Yeah.
and you
Not
know
national like this. Yes. Yes,
it,
I
it's
agree.
not national, and those games always have implications.
Yeah.
Florida State. You're talking about an ACC, SEC team. Like huge implications. You look at Alabama, Auburn, same thing. Like huge implications. LSU, whoever. Big implications. These are like big. If you take it to the West, Washington State, UCLA, USC, UCLA, whatever.
Or UCF
Oregon,
or UCF anybody because UCF is just like this undefeated master that
yeah.
does not get any
Well, I think they
creds.
lost last week, right?
Did they lose last week?
I think they might have,
Oh,
but I if
still
they
awesome.
didn't, oh well. But I go nitroglycerin. The no, here's this game that has no real significance to the sport that has stood the test of time because of what it actually means. It means that people can get together, have a healthy rivalry, have some fun, and just enjoy a game.
Right, right.
You
Yep.
know,
And
like
at the end of the day, they
and,
all shake
and
hands
yeah,
and they go
and,
back and
and
do
and
the.
then go serve the same country.
Yes. Be willing
You
to lay
know,
their
like
life down. Yes,
yeah, and
absolutely.
and I think like that's such a cool thing, and I would hate to have it go by without giving it some love, and of course go Army.
Our friends over at Ranger Up are doing quite a bit. I've seen them put out a few videos there.
Yeah, but
They're big into the Go Army, which is good.
the cool thing is like if Army loses, no one loses their job.
Nope.
Like no no one's jumping off of bridges. No one's like I just like if Alabama lost to Auburn, like people aren't getting fired.
Right.
Like there's not people like committing Harry Carey somewhere in like some back room. No, like you're like, oh, okay, well, for 15
Next
years
year.
they've had our number.
Yep.
We'll
Next
try
year.
again next year,
That's it.
and we'll continue to serve this country, and we'll continue to support this country, and do cool, great things. So I really wanted to talk about that, and then I have a couple other things that like they're more like beautiful hair rants, but
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we're down. We're counting down. We got about 12 minutes left, and so Eric Steitzel actually, Steitzel. I said Steitzel. Steitzel. It just put up a book reference, "The All Americans" by Lars Anderson. He talks about the Army and Navy cadets as friends and serving on D-Day, which may be a good book to check out. Just put that up in the chat. Also, if you have anything you want to, you can put it in the chat, or if you're listening not on Facebook or watching not on Facebook, you can also text the show 512-361-1178. And I'm also watching the chats in Periscope, Twitch, and YouTube. I see nothing coming up there yet. But anyways, what else you got, Toby? What's some Viking hair rant do you have going on there?
the life doesn't always work out the way you want it to. You know, my dad, I think it's from The Princess Bride, but my dad used to always say this to me when I was a kid. Life, dear reader, is not always fair. And I think that's from The Princess Bride. But, we as people of society need to take accountability for things that don't go our way. We need to take accountability for when we screw things up, or sometimes, like we just are born without certain things, certain attributes. I was not born gifted in mathematics. I struggle with mathematics. I required tutors, to get through college algebra. I might have taken college algebra this many times. Thank heavens that like the GI Bill let me didn't make me back pay that one that one time. But like we're not all blessed with an Adonis body. We're not all blessed with mathematical acumen. Whatever it might be. You're born with this genetic makeup, and then you try and do something with it, and sometimes it works out and sometimes it doesn't. If something happens in your life, stop trying to assert blame where blame has no place. And the reason I bring this up is there's a young man suing the United States government right now, and he's part of a greater lawsuit for discrimination because there's a policy, and I'm not going to get into the nuance of the policy, but basically the policy is that if you have certain diseases, and there's a list of diseases, you are not eligible to serve or to continue to serve.
Mm-hmm.
One of those is HIV. Some others are different forms of cancers and stuff like that. Life, dear reader, is not always fair. Suing the government, like, you're not being oppressed because you got this disease. Like, you just can't serve.
So he's suing because he has HIV.
He's a sailor. I believe he went to Annapolis, and got HIV, and now he can no longer serve because of this. I think there's more to it, because I knew guys that served in the Army, and this is a DOD policy, and I knew guys that served in the Army long after knowing they had it. And obviously the chain of command knew that they had it. It's in their medical records. There was some limitations. They couldn't deploy. They couldn't do certain things. So I'm not sure exactly the specifics, and that's why I said I didn't want to get too in depth into the nuance of it. But the bottom line is, like, hey man, that's life.
Yeah.
Be grateful that we have these medical advances, that you're not like Pablo on The Real World, San Francisco, that you get this thing and 12 months later you're dead. I'm using him as an example because that was my first real understanding of the disease back, in the day where, people died rapidly and, had a horrible life. The Rock Hudsons, the Freddie Mercurys, you don't really see that. You just hear that they had it and died. Pablo is that guy in the Real World San Francisco that everyone kind of got to know through the very first reality show. And, you kind of see, the struggle. But this is a medical thing. Like, hey,
right. Well, it's like
kind of like flat feet.
Yeah,
kind of like color blindness,
heart murmur,
kind of like asthma.
Yeah,
kind of like dude, you're trying to sue somebody because your genetics suck, or you're suing somebody because you got something.
Right.
Like,
I knew a guy I was in. I knew
to get it.
Yeah,
or you did is irrelevant. I'm not, and don't misunderstand what I'm saying. I'm not saying like he's being punished because he got a disease. That's not what I'm saying at all. What I'm saying is, like, you got a disease.
Right.
Like,
you get diabetes while you're in the military, they're going to put you out. I mean, they're not there to be your, like Rob kind of says, it's not a social experiment, but they're not there to. I mean, look, they need you to be deployable. They have a cap of how many people can serve in the military. They need people that can deploy and be effective. And if you're not going to be able to, if by being in the military puts you at risk for contracting other things or getting yourself in worse health. I mean, if you can't recover and get yourself refit or rehabilitate to do stuff. I mean, we get guys that now, thankfully, because of our technology, get double amputations or single amputations, and they continue to serve. They continue to jump out of planes. They continue to deploy again, right? So it's not like, oh, if you got a little banged up, you're out. I mean, if you put in the hard work and you're able to recover and you're able to meet the standard, you're back in the game, right?
Yeah. No, like Command Sergeant Major John Blue, single leg amputee, continued to serve.
Right.
Sergeant First Class Joe Kapaszewski lost his leg in Afghanistan. Wonderful book written by him. I don't have it within arm's reach to put it up, but like roped himself back into Ranger Regiment and continued to serve. Like, meet the standard, continue on. Sometimes life is not fair. Things don't go the way you want. Like, don't be that person and like cry about it, blame somebody, and then try and be compensated for it. Like, do something good with it.
Right. If it's out of your control.
And that's what I'm saying. It's like, in the spirit of,
You know what this is going to open up? This is going to open up. Someone's going to fail a PT test or fail a tape test and go and be outside height and weight, and they're going to sue to stay in the military because they're too heavy. You know, it's
100%.
That's what it's going to lead to. It's going to lead. There's standards, and there's standards for a reason, and they're not to exclude someone or you know, be mean to somebody. They're there so we have the most fit and the most physically and mentally capable. I highlight both of those, physically and mentally, because some people get put out for mental reasons.
Absolutely.
To be able to deploy and be. Do you want your best ones out there fighting for your country? Do you want your best ones out there to your son or daughters or loved ones left and right, defending and making split-second decisions and being able to pick them over the shoulder and drag them out of there or do whatever? Or do you want someone because, well, I feel bad for them and give them a pass on this one, but they're probably not going to be able to do the job we expect everyone else to do? No, you're going to put the best one out there, you know? You don't. There's a reason why when you pick kids when you're little and you pick teams, you pick the first ones you picked were the ones usually that you think had the best chance of winning. That's what we put in the military. The ones we think have the best chance of winning. When they don't, they're out. Right? No one picks losers to be on their team.
You know, everyone gets, you know, wrapped around the axles. You know, we only have a few minutes, but everyone gets wrapped around the axles that, you know, that they talk about, like, well, in this sports league we don't keep score, you know, because we want to focus on the kids having fun. Like, the enemy is keeping score.
Yeah.
And when you go into battle, it's not so like you can have fun, although you might have some at some moments in time in it. But like, it's training. Sports is training for real life. I've always felt that way. Sports is training for real life. Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, or now I guess it's just Scouts.
No, they're both still separate. Boys are trying to intrude.
You know,
separate.
You know, like they're training for life.
Junior ROTC.
Training for life.
Yep.
You know, like and not just that moment in time, but for the rest of their lives. And so, you know, I think if something happens to you, own it. You know, like, live with it. Try and turn it into a positive. You know, the bottom line is, you know, it's not about blame. It's about moving forward. And
if it's a
the
mistake you made,
the amount of money that you get out of a lawsuit isn't going to change the fact that you still got that disease.
Yeah.
Or you're not smart at math. You know, like, should I sue my mom because, like, I'm, like, not good at math? Like, that's just stupid. So that's all I got to say. And
you learn from it. Right, learn from it and get better at it. I mean, people lose jobs. They get fired, or they make a mistake, or they do something, or they get busted in the army, or whatever. You take that and you learn from it. That's like we do everything else in life. You touch the stove time and get hot, and it burns you. You don't touch the stove again. Hopefully, may take a couple people, may take a Marine 2 or 3 times, but that's a whole other story. But I went there. But yeah, I mean, you know, there's 2 things that motivate, that guide us in life. I talked to a young man about this a while back. He's E6, or he was then. You know, there's 2 things that motivate and guide us in life when we try to determine leadership or we're about to be leaders or whatever. It's both the positive leaders we witnessed and we served with, or we know that we were like, we want to mentor or idolize them and try to say, what would they do? I want to make a decision like they do. And it's the negative, the bad ones, the ones that we said that we couldn't stand, that we knew everyone else couldn't stand, and we say, I hope I never do what they do. I hope my soldiers or my subordinates or my peers or my whatever it is don't look at me like I look at that person. You take that, it's the same thing in life. Experiences. Hey, I hope I got a DUI. That really sucked. I spent all this money. I lost my license for 90 days, whatever. You learn from that negative just as much as you learn from the positive, or you learn from, maybe it doesn't have to be as negative. Maybe you see your friend get a DUI and you see what they go through, and maybe the lesson didn't have to be that hard. You kind of picked up on it real quick, or you didn't learn your lesson, and you're going to get one too. It's both, right? You can't. It's not always going to be all positive. We learn just as much, if not more, from the negatives because they hurt more. Not all of us are wise enough, sharp enough, or pay enough attention to learn sometimes the easy way, right? That's why in the military, what do I always say? I'm in the infantry. I'm doing it the hard way, right? I'm not smart enough to think about how to do it simpler, faster, easier. Sometimes I just got to, I just bang my head against a wall and realize, oh, okay, I should have did it that way. But I mean, this is the way it is, right? Whether you lose employment, maybe you lose a spouse or a girlfriend or a boyfriend or whatever, and you lose anything that means something to you in life. Hopefully you learn from it and don't make that mistake again, and you're that much better of a person for it. Just like you would be a positive. I added on to your hair rant there, or whatever it is.
Well, so let's skip next week so that we do 150th episode together.
Are we calling that? We're definitely skipping next week.
Let's do that.
Okay.
You know, let's make that happen.
So we're gonna do the 20th of December. It seems like a key date for me. So I don't know what that date means. I gotta look that up. So 20th of December will be our last episode of the year, and that will cap us at 150 episodes of Stu and the Nun. That's pretty good. That's a pretty good. And we'll start off January 2019, 151.
151.
Yes.
Maybe we'll drink some Bacardi.
Oof. I don't know, after New Year's, maybe we will, maybe we won't. But yeah, so that'll be what is that date? That'll be January 3rd. Yeah, so there we go. I had to look at the calendar. So okay, we'll skip next week. Everyone take a break. Give you guys a break. Thank you so much for allowing us in your homes, in your ears, and on your screens. Be sure, and if you didn't catch the whole episode, you came in late. You can catch us on all of our socials, find it on our website where you can listen to us on about 4 or 5 different channels, or you can watch us. And
subscribe on iTunes,
Spotify, iHeartRadio, Spreaker, Periscope, Twitch, YouTube, Facebook Live. I just remembered all those. How did I get all that? I don't think I forgot any. Tune in 2 weeks. So you heard it. We made the command decision right here. Episode 150 on 20 December. And then we'll be off to enjoy the holidays. We hope you will be too. So we'll take another 2-week break, and we'll be back on January 3rd. So, all right, Toby. I think it's a pretty good show for tonight. Covered some things, and I think as much as we know, as much we've seen, Toby, over this last year, or not 2 years, the news changes so fast that that in 2 weeks, right now, I'll say it, and you can go back and watch this later. We have no flipping idea what we're going to talk about, because there'll be 50 different topics we could have covered in the next 2 weeks. And but whatever probably happens on the 19th or 20th will be what guides us, because the news is not stopping, and there's no shortage of hot topics that are going to be coming up in the next 2 weeks. So,
yeah. Well, one thing we'll talk about is we'll confirm if Joanne Norton is correct and Navy's winning, or Doug Mullins and Rob Sacente were right and Army was winning.
Yeah.
So Eric and Joanne, go Navy for y'all. Everybody else, go Army.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, keep an eye on our Facebook and our Instagram. We'll be on the IG. We're still going to be there, even though we're not going to do a show. So we may do videos, do pictures, do whatever. So you're not losing us completely. Stay tuned into our socials, like all of our pages, like all of our stuff, and talk with us, interact with us. We love chatting with you guys, and love to hear ideas and stuff like that. So with that said, Toby, you ready to bid them good night?
Good night, y'all.
All right, everyone, have a great one, and we'll see you in 2 weeks. Thank you for joining us for another episode of Stu and the Nunn Radio. We hope you enjoyed your time with us, because we have enjoyed sharing our time with you. Be sure to check out stewandthenunn.com in addition to asking us questions and interacting with us on our Facebook page and Twitter. We look forward to seeing you next Tuesday at 8 p.m. Eastern here on Spreaker and Facebook Live. Also, we'd like to thank our sponsors, Warrior Media Solutions, PoohHammer.com, Veteran Outdoors, Graybeard Publishing, and Mighty Oaks Warrior Foundation. Don't forget to like our Facebook page and follow us on Twitter. Thank you again, and have a good night.